Hi, everyone. Welcome to Good Enough Today, the podcast where we share stories from people who are showing up authentically, even when life gets tough. I'm your host, Cheremma Lee. I'm so excited to share with you the new guests and interviews we have for Good Enough Today for 2026. But I have to admit, we're still in the lab. We're trying to make things right and ready to go for 2026. So I'll ask that you guys just bear with me while I work on living up to the Good Enough name and accepting that sometimes it's progress over perfection, and slow and steady does win the race. So while some people are preparing for a new year and a new me, I'm working on improving and progressing through this year and making myself better. And I hope you are too. And I'd like for you guys to follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube and see what's going on behind the scenes with Good Enough Today. I'd also like to remind you that even when life gets tough and things are looking bleak, you can stay hopeful for tomorrow and remember that you're good enough today.
Hopeful for tomorrow, good enough today. Oh yeah, hopeful for tomorrow, good enough today.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Good Enough Today, the podcast where we share stories from people who are showing up authentically even when life gets hard. I'm your host, Cheremma Lee, and oh my goodness, we have been rolling. I know that you guys know that I'm new to podcasting, and guess what? This is the beginning of season 2, and we're starting a new segment, and I have one of my favorite people in the world here with me to start this segment out. I'd say he's the first love of my life.
Oh, stop.
This is my nephew, Jadan Lee Williams. What up?
Everybody, it's Jaden. Been a long time fan of not just the show, but Cheremma here. Like she said, she's my aunt. She's honestly like probably one of my best friends in life. Just when I think about someone that's always been there for me, someone that's always supported me, no matter what, and has just really wanted to see me win in life. So, now I'm here to support her podcast, and hopefully you guys like to see me and, give a different perspective on here. But tonight, I don't know if you guys can see the title yet, but it's Good Enough Tonight. So, we'll get into that in a second. But right now, we're just here to kind of take a look back into the past, see what we can take from some of the different guests we've got to hear from, and really just have fun. And like I said, get to learn from the past.
He just took over, right? You see
I get to co-host sometimes. That's another perk I have.
That's what happens when you let your nephew on the show with you. No,
Nepotism.
Oh my goodness. I think that's awesome. All right, Jaden. So everybody's going to want to know a little bit about you. I know I've been knowing you for about 21 years.
Give or take.
Give or take. Give or take.
I mean, you were there when I came out, right?
Oh, yeah. Some nightmares about that. So yeah, tell us a little bit about who you are, what kind of things you like to do and those things.
Honestly, so just like we touched on, I'm 21 years old, born and raised in Austin, Texas. I think honestly, just a few things that really speak to who I am as a person. Like I've always been super creative. I grew up with an athletic background as well. So just being active, playing sports has always kind of been a passion of mine. And lately I've been venturing more into that artistic side, as I mentioned. So like filming, I love just making like little skits, acting, just doing different, silly things like that. I would never call myself a class clown, but I will say like growing up, I was always just the kid that enjoyed to see other people laugh. I always like to find the humor in things if you can and just kind of make things as lighthearted as possible. I feel like life is hard for everybody. So it's like, why stress yourself out more than you need to? You know what I mean? So definitely a glass half full kind of person.
Awesome. That's good to know. That's good to know. One of the reasons why I invited Jaden to do this, I made a proposal to Jaden for him to come and do this segment with me is because I felt like his perspective was so valuable because I'm seeing it from my perspective being 40 and kind of going through life and haven't had experiences. But I know that Jaden's perspective is much different because he's had different lived experience from me. And I thought that it could bring a little something to the show. So on Good Enough Tonight, we're going to do this segment every couple of weeks where we come in and we talk about the things that we've learned from the other guests and then kind of issues that we've seen. And then also the moments that we've seen where people are showing up and understanding that they're good enough today. So let us know how you feel about this segment and things that you'd like for us to bring up or things you'd like for us to talk about from our different perspectives. And then we'll see how it goes. And of course, we're always open to feedback and change. So if you think we should change anything, let us know about that too. All right, Jaden. So our first guest on season 1, I mean, it was crazy because I had never done an interview before. And
Right.
so Isaac Rowe was my first guest, and he was the founder of Man in Me. And
Mhm.
so Isaac came in, he sat actually in the chair that I'm sitting in right now.
Do you
And
feel some of the energy
I
kind of
felt the
transferring
energy.
over?
You know, other than you and mom, he's the only other person that came to my home studio. Right.
Really? Okay.
And because he also,
I guess so, yeah.
I felt that good energy with Isaac, so I let him into my house. Well, you know I don't let people in my
No, yeah, you gotta be protective about your
house. And
spaces.
so I haven't let anyone else, and we go to studios, or they go to Seven Oaks where we film. And so Isaac is a really cool guy. But Isaac talked about how he helps men to kind of grow into their own space
Mhm.
and then understand how to have emotional intelligence and how to be men and supportive of the people in their lives, but also to take up space and express how they feel. Do you feel like, as you are 21, right? Do you feel like there is an area for your voice to be heard in the things that you do in life?
Definitely. I think, when you're younger, it's kinda tough to project your voice when you don't have, like, say, your own platform. I think you can kind of get lost in, you know, everyone just seeing your youthfulness, or they're like, "Oh, well, he hasn't lived through this, so what does he know?" But I think at the end of the day, when you want your voice to be heard, it's less about, the volume that you speak in, and rather the depth you're able to go into. One thing I've learned as well is, like, and then I actually got this from a book that I read, but
You mean?
sometimes, it's new year, new me kind of thing. But no, one thing I read recently this year was, a trait of weak speakers are people that, almost don't like to let the other party get their point across, right? You're kind of over talking, you're kind of, just itching to butt in and give your input. But one thing that shows not just strength, but also shows confidence within your own voice and your own beliefs is having that patience to listen to somebody else, take in their voice and understand where they're coming from. And then from there, it gives you grounds to be able to share your story with more understanding and more respect, I would say, because then you've also shown them your ability to listen and hear from them. So I think I do have the ability to share my voice. I just think it kind of comes with being able to understand timing and picking and choosing how and when you say what needs to be said.
Also, I think those are really good points. Isaac also spoke about like the value of mental health and emotional intelligence. Do you feel like, well, you yourself and then young people, what do they think about like therapy and things like that? What do you think about therapy? How do you feel about it?
I think so. My viewpoint on therapy is I think it's very helpful if I think if you just have questions about, yourself in general. I think oftentimes we want to go talk to loved ones or our best friend or whoever we're used to venting to, but sometimes whoever you're used to venting to can't always give you that not just unbiased perspective, but sometimes they're not able to see everything that could potentially be going on because they still see the side of you that they're used to seeing you from. So I think that therapy can be very beneficial when you talk about just having an objective opinion
Mhm.
and being able to get, real advice from someone who's ultimately not going to better or I guess reap any type of consequences from your actions. So
Mhm.
I think from that standpoint, therapy is super useful. But um, I don't know. I think within my generation, the viewpoint on it is kind of like 50-50. I think um, there's a lot of people that see the value in it, a lot of people that advocate for it now. It's become much more of a common, thing to talk about and just kind of like come out about. Like now you see a lot of guys talking, yeah, I go to a therapist, and, even if it's once a month. It's just a much more normal thing. So I think people are starting to accept it more. I just think a lot of people are still kind of stuck in that old perspective of, oh, it might be weak minded or it might be a sign that, you know, you can't really figure out life on your own. But I think at the end of the day, no one's ever really supposed to be able to figure out everything by themselves. So I don't think there's any harm in going to a professional that's able to, like I said, listen to you and pick apart things outside of, looking into your personality or, any bias or anything like that.
Okay, cool. All right. So I feel like I'm asking all the questions and you're
Mhm.
doing all the talking. But I think that, of course, because I talk on every episode, right, where we talk about these things in the mental health aspect, I'm a big proponent of therapy. But I also think that like people think that that people who go to therapy just love going to therapy. I know that when I was between therapists, like I was like finished with this therapist and needed to find another therapist,
Mm,
it was very, very difficult for me to find another therapist to
I
do
see.
the whole process,
Right.
even though I really like therapy. And I was like, you know what? This is for
Well,
the birds. So
let
I
me
think,
ask you then.
mm-hmm,
So, two questions. One, how long have you been going to a therapist?
mm-hmm. Off and on or just this last.
We'll say off and on, just to
Okay,
kind of get
so
the timeline.
I first went to therapy maybe back in 2013.
Okay.
And so I went in 2013. I stopped going to therapy at the end of 2013, probably. And then I didn't go to therapy again until maybe 2018,
Okay. So maybe
2018,
like a short
2019.
5 year. Okay. Like
And
a five,
then
six
in
year.
2019, it was like an off and on thing. I would go to the little free things that they had for work or whatever. If
Right.
something happened, like, hit
Got
this
my little
EAP
ticket
and then
going.
boom, boom. And then after I got sick, I started to go to therapy much more often because I was like,
Okay.
okay, I want to go crazy too. You can't be sick and crazy. So, and I say crazy thinking of like, I feel like there's a difference in mental illness. And when I say going crazy, that's when you start to believe the nonsense your brain tells you, right? The stories that you can create.
I
And
see.
those things can make you what I say go crazy because
Okay.
you are analyzing all the stuff, right? And I think that's where that can be dangerous. And I think that's therapy. So,
For sure.
all right,
And
go ahead.
real quick, I was going to say, so the second part to why I asked you that question, since since the beginning of your therapy journey, we'll say, even though, you really started in like 2018, we'll count 2013. So
Hmm.
from even just your first interaction with therapy to now, has your viewpoint on therapy changed at all?
I think so. I think so because I feel as if back then I was like, just trying to see what it was about. People talking about it, let me
Right.
see what's going on. And then I didn't I needed some validation through therapy. Like,
Mm,
am I tripping? Or like, is everybody else crazy?
yeah.
Like that kind of thing. So I think that it's changed because my goals have changed.
Okay.
Oh. Yeah. So um one of the things now thinking about like therapy now, I feel like it's a good sounding
Can you
because
elaborate on that sounding board?
yeah, so sometimes, like I said, you kind of get into your head
Mm-hmm.
and you'll just talk yourself into or out of things. And you don't have an unbiased view from someone else to just say, well, what happens if that happens?
Right.
Or like to hear what you said sounded real crazy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in your head, it sounds great. You said out loud, you're
Like,
like, maybe.
different.
So
Like, I
now
thought that was
I thought that through, and now it doesn't sound as good as I
not
thought it
quite
was.
what I thought it was
No,
gonna come out like.
not my best moment. And
Mhm.
so I think that now it's much different in that respect. And I think it's a really good problem solving area. And sometimes, like I said, it's just, I'm going to say this to you and I want to know your perspective because I think, you have a lot of different experiences and you've seen a lot of different people and you've read the books and done the stuff,
Right.
right? Just like the chat GPT of people,
It's just
right?
like, okay.
Because they're taking in input from so many other people in order to get where they are. And I think that it's helpful in that way. But sometimes, I'm a big proponent of therapy, but sometimes I'm going to a therapist once every couple weeks. Sometimes it's once a month. Sometimes it's
Okay.
once a quarter, right? It just
Okay.
depends on the season in your life, I think.
I see. Okay.
So our next guest from last season our second guest was Stephanie Verdugo.
We love Stephanie.
We love Stephanie. We love Stephanie. And Stephanie, though, talked about a hard time in her life, right? And she was talking about when she was sick and how she just had to hold on to the crumbs of hope
Yeah.
and then push through that. Does that resonate with younger people some?
I think honestly more so probably after 2020 than ever, I can say I resonate with that. Just because like at the point when COVID hit for me, I was still going through the backstretch of high school. So that was
Mhm.
like a big time of not just trying to figure out who I was as a person, because, you know, when you're 17 going on 18, you're just like, what am I going to do after I graduate? So between trying to figure out school, figure out, you know, if I was going to work before then, just figuring out life as a whole, like, you know, I'm just thinking about all these different experiences that I was looking forward to that kind of got cut off and like thrown away into, you know, dreamland. And I'm just like, okay, well, now, you know, the rest of my life is going to look different. At least at that time, that's how I saw it. So when Stephanie talks about holding on to the crumbs of hope, I think it really just speaks to how, you know, I think a lot of times people think faith just looks like one, you know, one type of image. And, you know, it's easy to have faith when you're putting in work and you're seeing the benefits coming back from it. It's a little bit different when you have faith in something that hasn't quite grown to where you want it to be yet. And you're just trying to like, just make it happen, you know, little by little as much as you can. But I also think that's a very necessary thing to highlight, because I think a lot of people see, especially nowadays with, you know, social media, everyone has, you know, their own platforms, and a lot of people see the success point of it. They see when someone breaks through the internet and then they catch on to it and then they're like, wow, where did this person come from? But they didn't see when that person was holding on to their crumbs of faith, right? When they were just trying to build something out of nothing. So I think, and also too, if you're an aspiring entrepreneur or just someone that wants to build anything for yourself, I think that's definitely a test that you'll have to go through at some point. Is just holding on to as much faith as you can and just staying true to the mission.
You mentioned something that's very interesting about like how there was a big pause in your life because of COVID. And I wonder, because it, of course, in 2020 for me looked much different, right? I can't imagine. So that was was that the beginning of your junior year?
I was actually, I remember vividly, it was like,
The spring break.
Yeah, I was going to say, so we started off spring break my sophomore year of high school. And then
you never went back to school.
Right. It was like day 5 out of the week we were supposed to be gone. And then one school is, you know, ending, another school is cutting off classes. And then we found out right before spring break was supposed to end that we were just going completely online. And I was like, well, how is this going to work? And this was before like Zoom even became a popular thing. Like we were still using, what was it? We were still using like all the Google apps to do everything. And it was just like, you know, it kind of took me back to elementary school in a way, because it felt like a lot of the learning was less like, I don't know, I'm a visual learner. So I enjoy learning and, you know, being in an environment where I can apply things. It was much more like, okay, you see it now, 1 + 1 = 2. So it just kind of changed a lot of my outlook on the world. I think it put a lot of limits too on my mindset, whether that's just from, you know, even like graduating high school. Like I graduated with what I think was a decent GPA. It was like a 3 point something. But had I looked at it, I did. I'm telling you, look, if you go back and look, my overall GPA was maybe like a 3.2.
Okay.
And then my senior year,
I didn't say anything.
No, but look, this will tell y'all how unserious I was the first few years of high school before COVID. So I graduated with a 3.3 or 3.2 GPA. My senior year GPA was like a 3.5. So that'll tell. So that'll
don't fact check this guy.
No, I'm saying, listen. The next time I'm on the show, I'll try to bring up if I can find my old report cards. I'll pull it up. But I say that to say that my first 2 years of high school, I was not that serious about class, right? Like I was doing what I had to do to pass, but I didn't take high school as seriously as I wish I did. And so to transition back to how COVID affected me, I think it really just kind of made me like self-reflect in that moment and think like, okay, what do I need to do differently to start seeing the end results that I'm looking for? Because, you know, I didn't even know if we were ever going to have like a regular graduation. I didn't know, you know, at this time, I'm just thinking COVID might be the end all be all. So I'm like, how can I make the most of what, you know, could never be the same? So I think it just made me take life more seriously, but then it also required some self-reflection and just being able to say, okay, well, if I'm still here, and although I, you know, battled illness and, you know, so did my family, things like that, I knew I was still here for a reason, right? I knew I still had opportunities to do things. I knew the world was still moving. So it's not like I could just stop and, just cry about whatever I was struggling with. So I think for me, COVID was just kind of that reset that I needed to, like I said, just kind of get the ball rolling and start looking at what I wanted to do for the rest of my life.
Interesting. I mean, I guess we could go into more of what you got going on, but we'll keep with this because it's good enough tonight segment. It'll be shorter each time because we won't have to go through all
Right.
12 episodes, right? But I think that, and then we can people will get to see a little bit more about you and things like that. And I think that'll be cool. And how I pick on him all the time, but he gets me back. So let's be clear.
Yeah. We're some jokesters over here.
It definitely goes back and forth. Of course, Stephanie also talked about how the fire she has in her kind of pushes her forward to, like, she has to have that fire. Do you feel like, I don't know if, you hear the people now like, oh, these young people don't have any fire, right? Like how do you
kids ain't ever seen hard work.
Yes, yeah, that kind of thing. And so do you feel like you have a fire, or do you feel like the people around you have a fire? Maybe it just looks like something we don't recognize, or are we just not giving you guys enough credit?
Man, well, I won't say you guys because I'm not gonna lie. Sometimes I don't be claiming Gen Z, but I'm just able to be all the way real with y'all. But no, honestly, I think to answer your first question, I think I do have a fire, but it took me some time to find it. I think that it's hard to have a fire or passion, conviction, however you want to call it. I think it's hard to have that when you're losing the focus piece, and I think one reason why maybe a lot of my generation struggles with that focus piece is just because there's so many resources available to us at literally the touch of a hand. And I think that it can be a little overwhelming. I think when you see, especially if you're on Instagram heavily, or even like Facebook, Twitter to an extent, you see all these different, 20, 30-year-olds that are, multimillionaires. They've, done something over the past 3 to 4 years that just made them incredible wealth, and now they're teaching a course on it. And there's so many avenues you could choose to pursue. And so I think like I said, I think it's hard to really lock in on something if you're not set on, is this something I'm interested in? And so I think, I don't know, you can maybe give me some input on how it was before, social media and like growing up just in the early 2000s.
So why you got to say it like that?
No, I'm just saying because I think it does play a part. I think, listen, hear me out. I think social media does play a part in the mind of a young adult when, it seems like nowadays everyone is either a business owner or they have some type of side hustle.
Yeah.
And I think nowadays it's like, if you're not doing multiple things to create income, you're almost not doing anything at all. And so I think with that, just the mindset is a little bit different, I think.
But does that make you feel like if you are just working hard at one thing, does that make you feel like you're inadequate for what's going on?
Not necessarily. I think it all comes down to what your mission is with that thing and what your sense of purpose is. I think some people are obviously driven by, monetary gain. I think some people are maybe more so driven by just the sensation they get from helping people. But I think either way, we all have to provide for ourselves to an extent. So I think whatever your passion is, there's always that struggle of finding that balance between monetization,
Yeah.
monetization, and just like I said, the passion piece, and just having that love for it. So I think the mindset behind, I don't know what you want to call it, just maybe pursuing your career of choice. Like, I think the mindset is a bit different now. I think, like I said, going back to the point of there's so many different side hustles and everyone's trying to, become the next big thing. I think a lot of people's focus now is just where the money's at. So I don't think it necessarily means that you're inadequate. I think it's a tough balance for some people that want that, almost that get rich quick scheme.
That's what I was about to say. Well, do you think that it becomes, because from my perspective, I feel like people want the money, they want the fame, but they don't want to do the work. Like, everything that you're gonna do is gonna be hard, right? Like, being a content creator, a podcaster, these people that make it look easy, they make it look easy. But there are hours and time going into
Y'all didn't see how much she just edited.
just for this little bit of video, right? And I'm not, it's like I don't think people recognize that, like, you think, well, I want to be a podcaster, I want to be a social media content creator, and I can do this, right? But like, it takes a lot of self-concept and confidence, because there's no one encouraging you to keep going. There's no one telling you that you have to be up and do this at this time and do this. And there's no money coming in. Right. There's no like check that's just going to come in and you're just going to be like, yay. Right. And so I think that when people start talking about, oh, work for yourself, do this. And it's like, yeah, but sometimes where do you start? Because you might not have that capital. But then also, like, I think that's where the thing of like Gen Z and Gen Alpha, is that what they are?
I think so.
I don't know if they work yet. I don't know what they are.
I think Gen Alpha is like the 5-year-old. So I don't know. I don't know.
But I think there's this idea that Gen Z, right, is like, I think that's where we get it from. It's like, you guys don't understand. Like, they come into a job and they're like, I should be the CEO.
Right.
And you're like,
that entitlement.
Yes. And it's like, do you know? And they're like, well, I can spit off all the knowledge you have, but it's like, yeah, but you don't have the experience. Now, some people do, and that's I don't think it's based upon your age, right? I think it's based upon what you've done and how you can apply those things and the skills that you had. And I think it's different for everybody in every situation. Right. And I think, first off, let's be clear. I think that in every generation, there's been people who just want to do it quickly and not do it.
Oh, for sure.
And I think that it's just kind of been, it has been emphasized in this culture where you see it and you think it came fast. And because
I think that goes back to the convenience of social media.
Right.
You can see, every influencer that you follow, you can see their multi-million-dollar plane or, their $80,000 car or whatever. But no one knows what it's 2025. No one knows a lot of these YouTubers, just to give an example, have been doing it since 2017, since 2018.
They put in eight years in the game. They started doing this, and now they're at this many followers, and then they can pay for this. Also, how much to sustain that lifestyle is expensive, right? And so I think that just being happy with what you have and being thankful and grateful. I think that's also a great segue into who our third guest was, because it was Vachelle Green. Oh man, Vachelle was nice. I think that a lot of people really, really resonated with her message, but that's one of the things that she was like, I love helping people. She's the CEO, of course, United Way of Central Texas. Shout out to Vachelle.
Great energy, by the way.
Yeah. And I think that she was really, really, she talked about helping people as a way of finding your purpose and making it through things. Now, have you ever tried that? Is that something? I know you have the influencers that go out and like, they film them or record them, helping homeless people and stuff like that. But do you feel like, how do you feel about giving back? I think I kind of know, but you were raised in a give it back type family, right?
Right.
But like, as a whole, do you see people really trying to give back, or how do you feel like that's?
Man, I think I almost feel like I'm a bit of an outlier because I was brought up around just a bunch of people that just had a knack for not just giving back, but also showing people love. I always came from an environment where I was taught to just be genuine and just treat everyone with the same amount of respect, whether, it was the janitor that's mopping the floors in a business, or if it's the CEO walking through the main lobby, just treat everyone with that same generosity. So,
you got me smiling over here like I'm proud.
I love people, you know what I mean? And I love to see, just blessings being shared, not to sound cliche, but, I really do. And to answer your second question, I think it's tough because I do see people giving back now, but I think because of how many people we've seen disingenuinely, give back on camera or do things that, I hate to like put people on blast, but I mean, we've seen it before, right? We've seen the people that on camera, they're doing charitable work, and then off camera, the story's a little bit different. So I think now it's like, as a viewer, at least as a consumer, right? We see a lot of the same content, And I think half of us just kind of write it off as, oh, this has to be fake, or, oh, this has to be scripted, or, you know, oh, well, if you look at this person, like, you know, we're so hyper fixated on the details of everything, right? And I think nowadays it's almost, to some people at least, it almost looks like either a money grab or what some people consider clout chasing. Like, it just looks like, you know, attention seeking to get back on camera, which I feel like should never really be the way you look at it, right? I think you can tell if someone's genuinely just being, like I said, a good person at heart, showing love to people. But, you know, there has to be a bit of balance there, right? I think if you really want to help people, some things are better to do off camera just because it kind of keeps the moment more just genuine and present. So I think you do have to find that balance. But let's just say, for example, right, you're starting a nonprofit, you're giving back food to the homeless, right? Of course, you want to market that, but at the same time, you don't want it to, you know, you don't want to reflect the wrong things. So
take advantage of the population.
Right. So I think it's tough to say that I do or don't see people helping. I think we see it more often than we think or than we realize we do. But I think we don't always pay attention to it just because of the connotations that have been associated with it a little bit.
So I wonder if we're just not giving you guys a fair shake, right? Because I think that you have that confirmation bias, you know, that is where it's going to confirm what I already think.
Right.
So I'm going to see the things that I want to confirm, but I'm not going to see the alternative because I'm going to notice it because I already think that that's what's happening, but I'm not going to see you being a genuinely helpful person. And so maybe from our generations have to be able to have a little bit better perspective and open mind about what you guys are doing and how dynamic you can be. Because I know with social media, I feel like mom, right? When I'm talking to you, like, Jaden, how did this work? And you're like,
now, where did this button? It's the red icon.
And I'm like, yeah, okay, that makes sense. And I'm like, how did I become this? You know?
Right.
And so, but you guys have a lot more time with social media. You got like years of experience.
I was gonna say, at this point, I almost feel like I could take someone's job. And like as a social media moderator, I'm like, I've practically grown up with Instagram. You know, it's funny, not to go off topic, but I remember I was thinking about this the other day. I was like, how long have we been on Instagram? Like my generation.
Yeah.
And it's crazy because I was late to it, right? I didn't get on social media till I was 13. My mom was like, I'm not gonna let you have it till you're 13. Then you might have a little bit of sense. And she also, you know, she knew what it was with, you know, adults and minors. She was like, I'm not having that. But it's crazy because I remember in either 4th or 5th grade, so I might have been, I will say 10 years old, right? So around 9, 10 years old, I had friends that were on Snapchat. I had friends that were on Instagram. I had friends that were, you know, had an email and they were only using it for like video games and stuff. But I'm just thinking like, man, like
you got 11 years, you got 12 years of experience in social media and just
like we've seen almost every update. Like I've grown up with the changes of it, so it's crazy.
And you've got a lot of time to explore it, right? Because like as you were like 10 or 11, you could do it or at school, right? And you got to talk
free roam a little bit.
Yes, and we're at work. Right.
You're like, so what did you learn? Well, I learned what, you know, For You pages.
Exactly. I'm like, I got a job, so I might have 40 minutes and it's sort of like it compounds over time, right? And I think that that's what happens. But I think that, you know, back to giving back, I think that Jaden and I get off a little bit. You know, just
slightly.
A little
Bear
bit.
with us.
We come back.
Bear with us.
But Michelle also talked about like her community and her being able to get out and ask people for what she wants. And I am not good at that. Let me rephrase. Historically, I have not been good at that, right? And I think, how do you feel about asking people for stuff?
I mean, I think it's one of those things that with our pride, it can get in the way of that. I think I don't know, to be honest, for me, it's like, it's something that's ironic. As a kid, I was like, I had no problem with it, right? And then you get a little bit older, you start wanting to be more self-sufficient and independent. You know, you're trying to stick your chest out a little bit. And now you're like, I really have to ask them. Like, but I think sometimes, you know, all you really need is just a little bit of support. So I think, though it is something I struggle with, I think when you put into perspective, like, you know, what is it that I'm actually needing support with now? If you're asking for money, you might be like, oh, dang, they know I got a job, so that means they know I've been spending my money. Right? Like, there has to be a little bit of self-awareness there and just like, you know, understanding what you're asking for and also what you're asking the other person to see through, right? But I also think with that comes grace. I think that, we all go through times of tribulations. We all face different struggles. So I think asking for help is a very natural thing. I think it's just, like I said, it's a pride thing, right? We all want to feel like we can take care of everything on our own. And so when you have to step outside of yourself to look for someone else or look elsewhere for, maybe some extra assistance, some extra, just strength, mental toughness, whatever it could be that someone else is offering, right? You have to get outside of your ego to receive that.
Yeah, no, that's good stuff. That's good stuff. Now, our next guest on there was Mimi Styles. She is the founder and CEO of Measure. And I think Measure is so interesting because what Mimi does is she takes data and she uses it to prove a point. So she started that with the whole George Floyd thing, and she was like, okay, let's look at the numbers. Right. And now she uses data in the information that she gathers to help with Black physical health and mental health, and to create opportunities for Black and brown communities by just showing the data. Like, hey, we're underrepresented here because of this, and this. Tell me why. And then let's fix it. This is another thing that I feel like I hear all the time, and maybe I'm just maybe my algorithm sends me these things. Like that your generation doesn't have the critical thinking.
That's what happens when you're woke.
Fair. So, the critical thinking that comes with, like, is this real? Is this information? And what's the data behind it?
Like, what's the source?
Yeah, what is the source? And how do you guys feel about data?
I think nowadays data has somehow found its way into a realm of, like, subjectivity in a way. I think nowadays, it's funny. It's like, if the data proves your point, it's valid. And if it doesn't prove your point, or if it goes against your point, then you have to recontextualize it because, there's clearly something not being told about this data. So I think data has become super useful, especially, now we see the growth of AI and, just how much technology has outgrown what it was, even 2 years ago, right? So I think we can all agree data has definitely contributed to growth. Data has been useful when it comes to, building businesses, building, anything really. We can use data to look at anything. I think me personally, I enjoy data just because it's almost like another language to me, right? When you can't really break down all the context, or you can't really, break down the perceptions, right? Or the little conceptions of things, right? But it's like, we can always go back to the facts. We can always go back to the foundation of things, the X's and the O's, and just what makes sense. So I'm a friend of data.
That's cool. That's cool. I'm happy to hear that, actually. I probably knew that, though. I might have known. Mimi also talked about, like, having this solid sense of self, right? She was just like, like, you know what I mean?
Like, you just gotta know it.
Yeah, unapologetically, And I was like, when did this happen? And you're like, were you just a little girl being like, you know what I mean? I think it's easier as you get older, right?
Right. I was gonna say, because some people have that just off the rip. They just grow up, they're sure of themselves. And I think some people, they kind of go through, I think what happens is when you start to hang out around other people that you thought were cool, or, for one reason or another, you were attracted to their, their energy, their personality, whatever. And then you're like, hold on, this person's really not even all that interesting. You're just like, wait, you're like, wait, this is all you do? And then you start to kind of look at things differently. So I think it definitely takes time for a lot of us to grow into that, just that self, assurance that you have. But, I think Mimi might be a rare case. I don't know. She might be a rare case.
No, that's good. The next guest was Sharonda Robinson. Man, Sharonda is a force, right? And Sharonda talked about, she was the one that put me on the hot seat and challenged me in my concept of abundance, right? In my concept of being wealthy and living in a sense of wealthy, because I had this concept of having money as being negative, because it was like, oh, you're the sloppy person that look down on people and do this. And she was like, get rid of that. Stop doing that. Like, and see yourself as this. See yourself live in that abundance, in the words that you say.
So
Talk
like
about
abundance.
talk about the way that you plan to live like that. Like
Right.
just start living in that space. And I wonder, right, like how do you feel about money?
Well, you know,
I mean, we want it.
right. I mean, like we all gotta have some, but I think I'm actually glad that you pointed out the word abundance, because that was something that crossed my mind already. But also because this year I actually joined sort of a men's a men's accountability group, and we get together every week, but we talk about a lot of different things from just life, achieving our goals through whatever challenges we face, and then also having an abundant mindset has kind of been a key point for us. And money was something that I used to look at very, I guess I'd say very frivolously, if I'm being honest. Like, I was never, stingy. Like if I had an extra $20 and my friend, really needed some food, like he hadn't eaten all day, like, sure, I'll give you, I might give you a little 10, 15 off it.
I remember you buying all the snacks at the cafeteria.
I used to I used to have a couple different hustles, but no, I think as I've gotten older, especially now that I'm working more, starting to make my own money and, starting to make more of it, I'm starting to see that you can't look at it as, oh, well, if I go spend this, I'm never going to get it back. Or, like, of course you want to have like your emergency fund, like you want to be prepared for, worst case scenario. But I think outside of that, it's very important to live with an abundant mindset. Now, that doesn't mean go spend all your bread and then say Jaden told you to do that. That's not what I mean. But what I mean is, just understanding that the same way you earn that money, whether it was clocking in at work or, however you earn money, you can always get that again. Like money, they print money every single day, if you think about it. So I think just having an abundant mindset and understanding not only is the money infinite, right, but your abilities to create opportunities for yourself are infinite. Your abilities to monetize your interests and skill sets are infinite. It's all about, in my opinion, at least, it's all about doing it authentically to who you are. And so I think that's the biggest thing with money.
I want to put a plug in there that abundance is not only monetary, right? Abundance is the life that you live, the people that you love.
Having gratitude.
We can have an abundant mindset in that there's not a shortage of love. There's not a shortage of kindness. There's not a shortage of the impact that you can have on people. And nothing's too small. So I want to put that plug in there too.
For sure.
Because I think that abundance is much more than money. But money does make it easier sometimes, right? Shonda also talked about choosing to be different. Like I feel like when you are a certain way, let's say I was a night person. I was a night owl. And I'd always be like, it's hard for me to wake up in the morning and stay up late.
Yeah.
I can't do it. Right. And I don't know how you used to wake up early. I don't know how you do this. And then one day, I read enough books and stuff, and they were talking about getting up early. And I was like, okay, I'm going to choose to be a morning person. I heard somebody say, I'm not a morning person. I made a choice to be one, and then I became one. And so I kind of am still learning that a lot of these things we kind of choose, right? Like you can choose who you want to be. And sometimes it doesn't work out, but you get to choose the path that you take most of the time. Even when you're given the raw end of the deal, you have a choice then, even when it sucks, right? Do you feel like right now, I think that because I've had some experiences, it's easier for me to be like, well, you can choose, right? But coming from your age and what you're doing and things like that, do you feel like you usually have a choice?
I do. I think that's kind of a part of growth you have to step into, is just like accepting ownership of everything that revolves around you, right? I think now there is a difference between taking ownership of things you can control and then wanting to be controlling, right? But I do think that just a big step of not only being different, but just like accepting the fact that you are different from everyone else. Like, I firmly believe, even if you have a twin brother or twin sister, whatever the case, like I think all 8 billion people or however many there are on this planet, I think everyone is unique in their own way, right? And so I think it's definitely like a mindset. You have to choose to not only accept the things that you take part in, but then also a quote, and I forgot where I heard this quote first, but it's honestly been like a repeating quote for me throughout this entire year. But whatever you're not changing, you're choosing. And
Look at you preaching.
and honestly, like at first when I heard it, I was just like, dang, that's kind of a bar. But now I'm like, man, like that's so profound. And like I said, you really have to grow up to fully accept ownership. I think, especially as a young adult, I can speak for myself. Like I came from, I'd say a decently privileged background. Like, although, my parents might have had to struggle, I never had to struggle. I never had to worry about, where I was going to sleep, what I was going to eat next. So because I was alleviated of those stresses, right, I had to look at ownership a bit differently as I stepped into adulthood. And really just kind of like, it was one of those things, you're either going to run into it or you're going to run away from it. But if you run away from it, that dark cloud is still going to follow you. And then one day it's just going to be all dark. Right. And so I think it really comes down to, like I said, just accepting ownership and accountability. I think if you want to see growth in your life, I think you have to make the choices to change whatever is setting you back. And you also have to be real with yourself. You have to be able to kind of look in the mirror and see, okay, what am I doing that's not productive towards whatever my goals are, right? What am I doing that may be slowing me down from doing X, Y, Z? But I think it all starts with, like I said, just accountability and ownership.
All right, so we're gonna go to the next one is our 6th episode with Dr. Harvey, and then we're gonna stop after that because we've been doing it for a long time. So then we'll do the next 6 on the next segment of Good Enough tonight. But I also gonna leave some room after we talk about Dr. Harvey just to talk a little bit more about us and kind of how we plan this segment to go, because again, it won't be this serious and this long every time, but we have to get back through all of
Right. We had to give y'all something to bite into.
Yeah, and we just thought about this, right? Like thought about this segment and try to bring it to life to see what happens. Dr. Harvey talked about him not necessarily wanting to be a mayor, but feeling called to do it and having a purpose. And I think every guest that I've had said like, oh, I felt like it was my purpose. I felt like I was supposed to do it. Is that something that you think that young people think about?
I don't think so. Well, let me preface. I think that we do often think about what we may be called to do, but at least as far as my personal circle, I can't say that there's too many young people that would choose something they don't want to do and still pursue it because they feel like they're called to do that. So I do think there's a distinction in that. I think we always associate, when I say we, I mean like young, Gen Zers or whatever, or I'll even just say people 25 and less, right? I think when you're around that age, I think we always associate our calling with whatever we like to do or whatever we have the most fun with. But that's not always the case, right? God can talk to us in a multitude of ways. And sometimes it's the thing that you might not ever even think about, but you just so happen to be naturally gifted in that area, right? I think for me, partially, I think it's just speaking to people and connecting with them. I think, of course, I don't wake up every day like, oh, I want to just go talk to as many people as possible, right? Not trying to catch a restraining order, but or be that guy in Walmart that like, hey, he's been here for 2 hours.
Why I can't let him talk.
But no, I'm kidding. But no, I do think that that's, it's something that I've been blessed with, is just the ability to talk to people and just be relatable, right? I don't take myself too seriously. So I think for Dr. Harvey to say that is honestly, it's really profound to hear. And also it kind of like, it sticks out more so to me because I've actually been told by friends, old coworkers, whatever, people have told me like they think I could be a good politician. And I've been like, I mean, I see it, but like, that ain't me. But, I do think that's, it's something really, like I said, just profound to think about because, I mean, however you feel about the current state of, our country, we're in a lot of division, I would say. And I do think that it's important to in whatever way you can utilize your voice and represent your beliefs. I think it's important to do that. So for him to choose that as, not only an outlet, but a way for him to give other people a voice too, and not just his own, I think that's a super powerful thing. It also just shows you the strength, right? That you can have. You can be stronger than just a will of your own to go out and do something, because you're really called to change people's lives.
And I think that it's important to note that, like, you're not always in a state of turmoil, right? It's just not something that you dreamt of, right? Like, it's like, I am grateful for it. I serve the people and I'm getting something from it. I'm fulfilled in this, but it's not what I would have chosen to do.
Right.
Like, and I think that, and then maybe it's something that you accept as you get older, but you can run from it. But even like you saying that people said you could be a politician, I think that is, you notice what your strengths are, and then you can find jobs and things that kind of talk and speak to your strengths. So maybe you're not a politician, but maybe you're an advocate. Right? An advocate for this. Or maybe you are a politician. I don't know. I'll be out there like, here's his card. Here's the flyer. But
yes, he signed it.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that that's really cool. Dr. Harvey was very, very interesting in that regard, and just talking about finding his purpose and going from like wanting to do music and different things in order, and then kind of moving into that space. But I think that was really cool. Okay, so I wanted to like take a break from that, and like, because I feel like what happens is we're coming off like we're really that serious, right? like
locked in.
We're locked in, and we're talking about these good conversations. And I think that really does happen when we're hiking or whatever. We'll have very philosophical conversations.
We'll have to bring y'all on a hike one time. I don't think y'all are ready for it now, but listen, one day we'll get y'all on a hike with us.
Yes, absolutely. And we have these conversations, but then it's also like,
it's like, it's like, okay, but all right.
It is like, are we smart? Because
I'm like, hold on, is that a real word?
Yeah, like I don't
know. It's not right.
And I think that we talk about the good enough today, good enough tonight movement, right? And kind of knowing that like it's not easy being authentic, and it's not easy to keep moving forward when things are not great. But it's like, it's necessary because we belong here, and everybody has a purpose.
Right.
And I think that even if you don't know what it is, there are people out here who need you, who want to talk to you. So we want to promote the Good Enough Today movement more so than anything else. We got the merch on. If you can't see us, we got the nice little merch going. You guys are going to be able to purchase this on the website.
Tonight ones too.
I know. I'm going to cross out the DAY.
Why put night on there? I like that.
Put night on there. So we're gonna have some other merchandise. Of course, we got the tumblers, and they say hopeful for tomorrow on there. And then on the other side, they say good enough today. You like that? You know what I mean? We got a little something coming out. We got some hoodies coming out. I don't have those yet. But then we have the nice little good enough today. Oh, cameras over here. Good enough today hats and things like that. And of course, I talked about not being good at the ask. What do I need from you guys? One, I need your support. I need you to like. I need you to follow. I need you to subscribe. I need you to turn that video on, turn that podcast on. Even if you're not listening, turn it on for a few minutes, hear a tidbit, and then later on turn it on again so that we can get those numbers up. But also share this with other people and tell me how you're feeling. Tell me what's going on. If you've got a story, please, please, please tell me about that story. Even if you don't want to come on and be Jaden or any of the other guests, we can just read your story. And then we'll talk about your good enough today moment. And what did you do? What is your good enough today moment? What was a moment where you're like, this is not as good as I normally do it, but I gave it my all. It was good enough today. What's your good enough today moment?
Oh man, my good enough today moment. Oof. Just to kind of start off small, I'll say, man, one thing today. You know what? Okay, I'll start off small victory, not that significant. But today I was on the phone with one of my friends, and I'll just keep a long story short. I forgot where we were. We were somewhere, and he was like, man, I low-key need some new basketball shoes. I was like, really? And I was like, well, what size do you wear? And he was like, I think I wear like a 13 or something. I was like, well, dang, Bigfoot. I was like, you might want to go look around some different stores. I was like, I don't know if such and such had them. And then, I was like going through my closet, And I just so happen to have a pair of basketball shoes that someone must have gave me because I don't be wearing up there. I wear size 12 if y'all are wondering.
Send him
But
some shoes if
right.
that's
And
his
like just
ass.
in case y'all looking for somebody to fit a size 12, I got you. But yeah, I had an extra pair and I literally hadn't worn them since I probably got them. And so I was just like, I hit them up and I was like, if you really want them, like, you don't even have to pay me for them, whatever. I just give them to you. And so then we ended up meeting up like a little bit ago and I gave him the shoes. And then he was just like, oh my gosh, dude, I appreciate you. I was about to go spend $65 and you gave me these for free. Now, I'm not going to tell you what kind of shoes I gave him because I'm not going to lie. Now thinking about it, I'm like, I should have charged them.
Oh,
But
see.
no, but look, no, I'm kidding. Look, the reason why I said that is because they were a pair of Kobe Bryant's. Kobe, one of
You
my
gave
favorite
away to
athletes.
Kobe?
They didn't fit me though. They didn't fit.
But hold up.
No, but
we gotta have to talk
but
off
look,
camera
the-
now. Hold on.
no, they were kind of beat up though. I'm not gonna lie. They were kinda beat
Okay.
up. Yeah. It wasn't like they were pristine condition.
Okay.
But what really
okay.
hurt was the fact that like they were like the yellow Lakers colors and like it just
You gave away to Kobe?
they were torn up. I'm not gonna lie.
Okay.
It was kind of
I don't.
and like the toe part was kind of we.
Okay, we're talking about
I was being charitable though.
Today. You're being charitable.
Mhm.
I just took
Amen. You know what? Amen. Because God does not value money like us humans do.
You see how bad we got off track? For me today, I haven't been feeling well. And so today my walk sucked. I hated that walk. Every minute of it, I was like,
How long did you walk?
I did 2.43 miles this morning.
That's good.
It was dark outside. I was like, I didn't want to do it.
You
But
went out at the night walk or something?
well, it was
Was it like 4
it's my
a.m.?
morning night walk because it's dark at 6:30. And so I was out there at 6:45 and I'm out there by myself like, I don't know if this is smart, but
Yeah.
don't say yeah like that though. Don't say yeah like that.
I mean, but you know what? When you think about it, it was probably just you and the raccoons outside at that time. So
we don't even need to talk about the raccoons. But I felt like, finishing that walk, I was like, you know what? I gave it all that I could today.
right.
And that's good enough. Even though it's not like the 14 minutes or 15 minutes flat that I could walk that mile, each mile, that it's still good enough because I still got out there and move my body. It'll feel good about it. And I don't have it hanging over my head all day.
Right.
So I think that's my good enough today moment, even though I didn't feel like it. I still got out and I still did it.
Would you say that even though you weren't able to give your full 100%, do you feel like you gave it all that you could in that?
Yeah, I gave the 100% of the 50% I have or 40% I have.
And after giving that 15%, did you feel more rewarded?
I don't know about more. I felt like
maybe like mentally, not necessarily like you felt the physical benefits, right?
No, but I felt like I'm happy that I did it because I gave it all I could, right? And it's not a comparison against like what I could normally do. It's just like, man, I was able to walk. I got to actually walk and finish it and do it. So I think that's my good enough today moment. And I think that I'd love for you guys to share what your good enough today moments are. Please, please, please interact with us. The other thing that I need you guys to do is support. Of course, we need some sponsors. We need you guys, if you guys want to support a studio session for some of the guests, especially if I'm traveling to see them. If you want to support some of the things we're doing, or if you have something that you would like for us to review or look at or see if it's something that we would like, go ahead, send it to us. Let us know. Of course, you can connect with us on Instagram through Good Enough Today, on Facebook through Good Enough Today, on Threads through Good Enough Today. It's a lot of Good Enough Today. You get the gist of it.
Pretty much anywhere you can find us.
And of course, in a couple of weeks, you will be able to get all of our merchandise on goodenoughtoday.com. And I think that it's going to be awesome. Go ahead, and a portion of the proceeds from Good Enough Today merchandise will go to Unabridged Academy because that's near and dear to our hearts. So if you have questions for me or Jaden, please, please, please make sure that you reach out to us because we're open, we're honest, we're transparent here. And I love having my baby here.
And I love to support you over here.
Oh, absolutely.
It's been awesome.
This is amazing. But remember that even though things can get a little bit tricky, it's important that you understand that you are absolutely, absolutely valued in this world. And even though you might not be where you want to be, we can stay hopeful for tomorrow, but know that you're absolutely good enough tonight.
Hopeful for tomorrow, good enough today. Oh yeah, hopeful for tomorrow, good enough today.